All right, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. My name is Silas.
And I'm Aaron.
And I'm Zane.
And what are your guys' life updates?
I have a hurt elbow. I
Show the
have
camera.
bursitis.
Yes, you do have a hurt elbow. Oh, and it is hot.
Yeah. Oh, I'm hot. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Weird.
You,
Zane?
Zane, anything?
I got married. Yeah. I think, was I married the last time we did this?
Yes.
Oh.
I don't think so.
So that's not really an
You're a
update.
fresh married. You've been right off the honeymoon.
No.
Wouldn't have been ready to talk
a
about
month
you
married
know
now.
what.
Yeah. You know what?
Yeah.
What? Her cooking?
Yeah, her cooking.
Good. Excellent. Hopefully it's good. I
She's
think
a great cook.
It's great. Yeah.
Sourdough.
Who actually cooks more?
It's about even. Yeah.
Wow. Gender
reversal.
roles are confused.
We'll talk about that in the next episode.
Yeah, come back next time.
We're
for-
egalitarian.
All right.
Silly Silas, what are we doing today?
Well, I'm getting
Silliness.
coffee off my notebook. Well, let's go through and do a little bit of a brief introduction.
Well, you didn't give us any of your life updates. Silas just finished, just so you know, and he actually finished
Drum roll.
unlike his brother Eli, but we won't say names. Silas finished the Iron Man. Pretty amazing.
You did not
Now
do
Eli had a cramp or something, so that's cool. What he did, I'm still proud of him.
I don't think Eli's
Just
going to
less
watch this, so
I think
hopefully
we're
that's
safe.
good.
But Silas finished the Iron
Eli,
Man.
we're
Good job.
sorry.
Thank you.
I am
Dad-
very proud. It broke my heart that I couldn't be there. I literally was on the ground, like crying at one
He
point.
wanted to go. He
did.
told me multiple times.
It was
To quote Dad this morning, I totally would have been there, but I didn't want to go.
I was praying for you, in all
Mr.
honesty.
Homebody.
I prayed for you.
I felt it.
Good.
I felt
Awesome.
The
So
Holy
to be the
Spirit
wind
said-
beneath his wings
The
is what I
Holy
prayed.
Spirit said this was from your dad.
Amen. That's right. That's probably why you didn't drown.
That's pretty cool.
It's like a Lion King moment.
Oh,
I don't endorse Disney.
In case we haven't seen anyone here before,
Yes.
you are Aaron. You do.
I'm the patriarch. I do. I run a business called Future Men. It's like a troubled teen. Not necessarily troubled, just for boys. School for boys, trade training, discipleship.
Teenage boys.
School. Yeah. Well, 14 to 21. So some of these aren't teenagers any longer. So,
Fair enough.
but they're still needing help. So it's good.
Yeah, and I am one of the family directors at the boarding school.
Yep.
I've been there for about 5 years now, and I work primarily with the families, just helping them with communication issues and just trying to restore the relationship there so that when they go home, there's already kind of a foundation laid.
Yes.
And
Silas, what do you do?
I'm a nurse, which has very little to do with this, but I am your child.
And a
So that
cheerleader
gives-
at one point. So he's a nurse and a cheerleader. Wow. I'm surprised you didn't finish the Iron Man.
I'm so glad he brought that up.
Anyway,
I am proud.
getting back on track. My job is to be a good mediating voice, a voice of reason.
I thought that was Zane's job. I thought you and I were banter.
Zane and I kind of both have to do it for you.
Oh, okay. So,
It's kind of like the two different angels on one shoulder.
okay. So Silas has beautiful little kids.
I do have really
Little twin
sweet
daughters that are
but that
crying
doesn't
right
matter
now.
right
I
now.
hear
What
that.
matters right now is biblical discipleship, because that's what we're talking about today. So last week we talked about it a little bit, and we were discussing that when you are having a one-on-one with your boy, girl, teenage, younger, older, doesn't really matter, and they come to you confessing something that they've gone through, because you mentioned some of your kids coming through. I won't mention names, but it was Droopy, and saying like you said, like, oh, some pretty serious stuff that you want to talk about. How do you respond to your kids bringing things to your attention and confessing things to you without shutting them down or like punishing them right away and making them hesitant to come to you in the future, while also maintaining authority in your house? So run with that.
Yeah. So I would just, as a brief reminder review, the first few years of a child's life, right, maybe up to 8 years old, you're focusing a lot on behavior. When their behavior is in line, so to speak, right, that's your cue. Now it's time for discipleship. Now it's time to really start like working on their heart, working on the issues that they're dealing with. Most of us just realize, oh, they're obedient. I can now do nothing, because they're doing their chores, they're doing their homework, they're pretty nice kids. So we sort of like just keep watching for disobedience, especially in younger kids, and maybe the older kids sort of start getting a little bit, I don't know, not ignored, but just maybe missed. But if you're purposefully discipling and you're meeting, literally, and it sounds so canned, but it works. If you're meeting every week at a specific time, and now your kid comes to you and he's used to coming to you in a moment of non-conflict, right? He knows it's purposely you're setting aside time for him, and he divulges something, or she, that's pretty serious, right? So,
Well, real quick. So when you say discipleship is a time when they are getting past the point where you're just expecting the strict obedience,
Right.
like given age range ish, so you'll have an idea.
Yeah.
It's
So
different for every kid.
I feel like 12, 13 is a great place to start. Some people start like one of the guys that works for me, his kids start around 10, and that's perfectly fine. I don't think there is a right or wrong answer. For me, it's just we had a bunch of kids, and it's like we just kind of started them at 13 because it made sense for some anatomy type talks to begin because they're going through puberty. And
We'll dive into that later.
oh yeah, so we started around 13, but it doesn't matter if you're a little bit younger. With Lori started like with Finn, I think around 11, and lightly, right? It's not every week, and the books are pretty they're pretty low key, more about like just kind of women's roles, things that are more like getting her mindset in the right space. But in this thing, we're talking about confession a little bit. And what do you do when they tell you something that's kind of crazy, which I've had happen several times. And honestly, so if you're a homeschooling family, which you probably could be if we're watching this podcast, we kind of think we're isolated or insulated from the world, and we kind of are. But the crazy thing is sin is everywhere. And what we've found in the last 12 years, I would say, is that a lot of homeschool families that are really being intentional, trying to do a good job, pornography still sneaks into the house. The boys are looking for an outlet for that sexual energy, and it's their sisters in some form or another. And having seen this probably, anywhere from maybe 12 to 20 sometimes in the last, I'd say 10, 15 years, the shock of it's, I'm past that. So even with my own kids, sort of, my response wouldn't probably be as drastic as yours might be, because again, it's your family. It's like, it kind of knocks the wind out of you when something this heavy happens, and you're just like, you don't know where to go. And it's hard to hide that from your kid's face of like your shock and dismay and maybe even like brutal anger, especially if this has never happened in your family before, something that seems this extreme, because it is extreme. But your response matters, right? And so how do you help the kid realize, okay, you're telling me things that are probably more serious than you realize, but maintain composure, especially because like if the kid's like, let's say somewhere between 10 and 13, and they're sharing something with you that you're like, oh my goodness, this could be a really serious deal. Like it's pornography, or maybe they're touching their sisters or doing something that's just barely scratching the surface. Sometimes they'll say things that they don't necessarily mean as deep as you could take it. Sometimes it's a question they ask. Sometimes it's, hey, I saw this, or hey, I thought about this. But they're not quite thinking as down the road sexual as a parent might, because of our fears and then our own experiences. But a 12-year-old kid, especially if you raise them fairly isolated, they might not be thinking what you're thinking. So you just gotta be careful, because you don't want to shut that kid down.
So briefly, where do you see parents coming into this? Zane, you can answer this. This is a good question. Well, not to say like I'm a good question guy, but it's a good question.
You are.
This is a really good question.
How many parents would you say assume, before we get into because I want to dive more into that, but to back up a little bit, when it comes to discipleship, and you said even homeschool parents who typically think, our family is a little bit more sheltered, a little bit more safe. How many parents do you see at Future Men or just life assuming the best and then being proven wrong?
A lot. That's like the majority.
Yeah, it's all.
Yeah. And I would say the reason is probably because of what Aaron mentioned at the beginning, is they never really made that transition from expecting the behavior and actually trying to get to the heart of their kid. And there should be a transition at some point. Once the behavior is there, you got to realize there's a person under the surface there that's developing, and you want to get to know who that is in your child. So I think the discipleship is a way that God has taught us to get to know that person. So as a parent, taking the time to do that and invest in that is huge, because when they are struggling with those things, you want to be the first person that they come to,
and they will.
And they
with
will.
Some really weird questions.
Where's the danger when you said creating kids that are obedient and appear great on the outside, and then never transferring, the old saying, like rules over relationship, or relationship over rules. Where's the danger of only what'll happen to your kids provided you don't switch to discipleship and you just expect the behavior?
Well, I think what you see most often is not a lot. You'll start seeing when things get really bad, you'll start seeing the really bad behaviors. And then that's when we start getting phone calls from parents, because it's like, this came out of nowhere. I don't know. And there's a lot of panic. There's a lot of shock, a lot of fear, because as far as they knew, everything was fine. And then their whole world is falling down around them. When really, if they were tuned in to what was going on, it would have made a lot more sense. They would have maybe been able to understand how their son ended up in that position. But I think we often think if everything's looking okay on the outside, then everything's okay on the inside, and that's just that's not true.
Some of these kids they're brewing over, right? The anger, the resentment. And it's weird. It's like, from what? From having a good family, from having parents who care. That's what we say, right? Because we're the parents.
Perfect.
Yep, exactly. It's just because we feel ripped off. It's like, I spent time reading books, taking parenting classes, right? Trained you, been working with you. I love you, giving this great house. But the kid's like, he's been past outward behavioral stuff for 2 or 3 years and just feels empty. Because even with like devotions and family worship, which are fantastic, right? It's still not exactly the same as like genuine discipleship, where you're walking by the way, laying down with them, the whole Deuteronomy 6, where it's all the aspects of your life. But also, I would say just intentionality is the biggest one. So again, this is like preventative parenting maintenance rather than putting out fires. Putting out fires, man, there's always damage. So if you're just like preventative stuff, so Angus came right a couple weeks ago, whatever, and was telling me some stuff. And when he first started sharing these details of this situation, I started going into panic mode a little bit, like any parent would, thinking, oh my gosh, what's he going to say? Because this sounds like it's going down a dangerous road. Then when the cat was out of the bag and it was more like stuff in his mind or stuff he was wondering, not things he had done, I sensed the relief valve go on. And it's like, okay, so these are the things we need to be asking about. These are the scenarios we need to be avoiding, right? Asking about meaning really pick his brain on what was tempting to you, in this scenario when this family came to visit, or when we were at the beach, or when we did this or that. And then where does your mind go? And so anyway.
So rewind a little bit. So Droopy comes to you, or Angus, whatever you want to call him. And so because I think the idea of without discipleship and just the rules, you basically create typically great fakers, like kids that are really good at appearing as all the good things because that's how they get your approval and your affirmation. But in reality, they're struggling with these thoughts or these desires or these actions that they're just probably hiding. Because they don't feel like they have that spot to come to their parent because they haven't practiced it. Because to you, like, it's not even about, quote unquote, like making good kids. Because in reality, you have a lot to do with how your kids turns out. But in spiritual matters, like, God's in control. And so, but a big point of the discipleship is giving your kid a safe space to come. Safe space is overused, but a safe space to come and talk to you and flesh out these thoughts before they become actions and before they become deeper ingrained in patterns. And now he has that spot, whereas if he didn't have that practice, but he was having all those thoughts, they'd probably just continue to get deeper and deeper, become patterns, and then patterns become actions, and actions get hidden. And then at 17, you have a kid who's been like struggling for 4 years and you never had a clue. And I think that's what we see a lot at Future Men.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's it's one of those things where when you're talking with them, especially when they're like 12, 13, and if you've raised them relatively isolated, right? Then words like sex, they'll hear it even on a good source, like even from a sermon, or they'll hear it from a podcast that you guys are listening to or something where it's not meant to be titillating. It's just sort of thrown out there. You like that word?
Titillating.
That's a good word.
It's a technical word.
It is.
Yeah.
Very technical.
Is it a word?
Oh, it's technical.
Oh,
word.
it's real.
We used the word last week.
Look
That
it
was
up.
not a word.
Ask AI.
Gabe,
be careful what
is
you
that
ask.
a real word?
Yeah, we have an assistant now. He'll be getting on that stuff.
Hey, pull that up.
Good luck spelling it. All right. But anyway, with him, right?
Covenant eyes might get flagged on that word.
It just,
I have accountable to you, so.
it's even worse. It's such a homeschool group right here. And we encourage parents. That's the bottom line. And ask the questions because, again, most of the time they're not thinking as drastic as you are, especially if you've started discipleship before there's a problem. When parents try to start discipleship after there's a problem, you can. It's not too late.
And you should.
Yep. But it's like, it really is. There's a hurdle there now because the kid feels more like this is a consequence, not a blessing. The meeting time and all that. You can like, as long as you're faithful and continue to do it, don't make it always about the infraction, but rather just, hey, it's weekly accountability. It's how you doing in your studies, as far as, your personal devotion time, struggles they have with their siblings. If they're older, how's their job going, direction of their life, just, general questions you would want to be asked if you were being discipled by someone. So,
and by the way, this discipleship relationship can really begin, or you can start laying the foundation for it long before they're actually old enough for you to start meeting with them in that way. Because I think if you want to teach your kids or that it's okay to come to you
right,
with things that they've done wrong or mistakes they've made or how they've been messing up, your reaction to them breaking something when they're a kid or making a mess or, doing something against the house rules, they're starting to figure out how does mom or how does dad react whenever I'm doing something wrong. And that's not to say that you don't follow those things up with consequences, but do you overreact, Yeah,
and the kids don't come with a clean slate. Keep in mind, especially if there's older siblings who've gone down a bad road.
Yeah.
And the siblings and the kids have watched the other kids and their parents' responses to those kids when they're in trouble. So it puts a fear in the younger kids of like a good fear in some ways. I don't want to do wrong, but also a fear of telling mom and dad stuff because they saw your reaction with the older kid. And especially if it's gone south and you had to kick the kid out of the house or there's something crazy going on, it's like, well, I'm not going to say anything. I don't want to be next. And then all of a sudden now you've got a real problem because, and we have a situation like this right now at Future Men where it's like, there's just a ton of angst against the parents that's brooded in the siblings. And when we have a younger sibling that I'm seeing as well right now on the side as far as like just private counseling, and he's from a family where the older kids have been in trouble as well. And it's like he has angst that has nothing to do with the parents. It's all just owning the older siblings' problems and taking a side, so to speak, because the kid, they're living in the room with the brothers, right? It's like you feel like I'm going to stick up for my brother, even though it's mom and dad. Nobody wins. That's the end. At the end of the day, the kids who are sinning are getting encouraged by their siblings of like, not encouraged to sin, but like, we still love you, mom and dad are crazy, whatever. And then parents are frustrated because you feel like the older kid is doing wrong. And then the younger kids are being misled. And then the younger kid he's just, in the name of love for his siblings, he's getting himself in trouble. So it's just a bummer.
So to go back to sort of where we started, because we did get a little bit rabbit trailed there. What? Your kid is coming to you with that thing, right? So let's say you are doing the actions of discipleship and you are, doing meeting with them once a week or once every other week or whatever it may be. And they come to you with something that's a little bit more concerning, thoughts or actions. For this situation example, let's say your kid comes to you and they're like, hey, I messed up. I did this. Whether it's, it could be a lot of different things. Like let's
just make one. Let's just say this wasn't the case.
I found your computer in your office and I got on it and I looked up pictures of naked girls.
Right.
And I've never done that before. This was really weird. I don't know why I did it. I have all these weird feelings.
That's a good example.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Where do you go? Thank you. Where do you go from there?
Well, you gotta hit it head on, right? So the first thing I would do, and this is one of those things where it's like, don't assume too much. Because Angus one time said, it was funny, not to throw him under the bus, he confessed something like that. And it was like he had typed in, they were doing like an AI pictures of their friends and making fun of them, which was probably not good. but they typed in pretty girl or pretty 9-year-old girl. And because this girl was 9, they were going to do it. And I'm like, first of all, yeah, it was my computer typing in something like pretty 9-year-old girl. I'm going to jail. So that's what I'm thinking immediately. But I asked questions. I'm like, okay, well, what came up, right? And what came up was basically nothing. It was like some random, either photo bucket or whatever. Kids Instagram pictures of just kids smiling or with whatever. Just nothing bad. So, I just told, this particular son, what could happen to dad based on what you typed in and why, without getting explicit, right? And then for him, what could have come up, because the computer doesn't know who's typing something in. And granted, AI is pretty intelligent, probably demonic. We're gonna get canceled.
That's a different episode.
Please, we'll do that in maybe a different
algorithms,
maybe a different podcast.
Yeah. But with him, it was good for me to be reassured of I did one of my other sons. I won't say a name on this one. We went back because he'd found some pornography on the computer and he looked up some stuff. It started with Wikipedia, which is total homeschool hilarious. It's like typing in a Greek god statue or something to see a boob. It's like, good job. But it led to other things because, computers do. But with this particular son, we went back and with my hand over the screen, I wanted to see what he had seen. It's like, what's in this kid's head? What are we actually fighting? And not just a random blanket, you looked at pornography, you're such a pagan. It's like, okay, yeah, deal with the consequences from violating the maybe house rules on being alone with the computer, or because it seems like there's always one or two minor subtle rules that got danced around by the kid to get to something that's a problem. And they might not have necessarily meant to, or it might have been really evil intentions. It might have just been, well, nobody's there to ask, or I didn't think this would matter because, I was looking for we're doing a joke thing. It's like, I get it, but that's how bad things happen. But go see what they've done. Go look at what they've done. And with him, I was pointing out on the screen, look at these particular girls' faces. And it's like, do you see something that you would want, in your mother or in your sisters? And it's like, is there joy in their eyes? This is a bad situation you're looking at. And it's like, that's not real life. That's not like what, you're looking forward to as a man with a woman someday. And we just talked about setting false expectations. At this particular time, this kid was 14, I think. So he's still pretty young too. But the reality is of what's that going to do to your brain if you don't work through it. Now, he worked through it, and that we know of, porn never became an issue with him, which is great. He's married now and doing well. But it's this is just one of those things where it's you have to do a little investigation. You can't be afraid or just sweep it under the rug as well, don't ever do that again. Well, don't ever do what again, right? I mean, if the kid's looking at pornography that involves sex, you have to go a little deeper than just don't ever do that again. So you need to talk about what he saw, how those things affect your brain, and yeah, granted, one and done, not much, but you can really go in a warning stage with him. Maybe not so much detail because again, you don't want to titillate, which our assistant never told us, but it means basically to tempt with fleshly type
means
desires.
fake word. Keep going. Keep going.
Like and subscribe in the comments below if that's possible. It's probably not possible.
Like and subscribe in the comments below.
That's how much I know.
Titillate, intransitive verb to simulate by touching lightly, tickle, to excite another pleasurably, superficially or erotically, to excite another, especially in a superficial, pleasurable manner.
I would live a better life. I would live a better life if I had never heard that word or that definition.
Now you know.
Well, you need to know. Okay.
On this podcast, we speak truth.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, moving on just a little bit.
Yes, please.
So you said don't underreact. Okay, never look at that again. We're not really going to address anything specifically. Don't. I'm adding this to you, but don't overreact. Well, you can't be around a computer for the next 7 years.
Oh yeah.
You're totally grounded. And you said something interesting, which was when you punish, if you're looking at discipline, you're disciplining the actions of getting around the rules to get to that. Because typically there are rules you can't be on your phone in your room, or you can't, you shouldn't have this on your computer, stuff like that. So you're punishing that. You're not necessarily being you looked at this, you're a horrible person, and we're going to punish you for even the idea that you did that.
Right. And that may come someday, right? I think initially you're reaffirming with the kid, these rules were set in place to protect you. You went around them, thus this is why you're in trouble. If you did it again, right? And you found like, okay, there's a pattern here looking at pornography. It's like, okay, now the seeking out, looking for pornography is a whole separate, like direct disobedience type of, situation you got to deal with. And it's like, then it really is just that. But if you make it just that the first time, I think you're missing the point. Your rules were meant to help protect him. Just focus on that for now because he's still young. And if you respect the rules, he won't find himself in trouble. So
I think the idea of doing it that way stops you from creating probably a lot of shame in your kids and a lot of like guilt, and I think shame is the best word, and feeling like dirty and like, well, they see me as different now. I'm like,
I think I don't care what your past is. You could be like, a preacher's kid like I was, who led a really good life like I did. No, I'm just kidding. I wasn't
you
so
were
great.
very sinful.
But I think no matter who we are, no matter what our level of sin is, growing up, and we're all just, pathetic. And I think if you're communicating that to your kid while addressing his sin, not minimizing it, but also having him realize, yeah, here's why that's intriguing. Here's why we're drawn to those things. And here's why in those things, our culture has like basically taken a beautiful gift and just trashed it with bad ideology, right? Like showing him the faces of those girls that he had looked at, right? It's like, you don't see joy. You don't see somebody's mother or wife. You just see people being used. And like in weird, like situations that are like, that's not natural in any good marriage. This is a recipe for it's a humiliation for your woman. And it's like, you don't want that.
Yeah.
And when you hit it with those kind of words, I think it's for the kid. It's like, oh, I'm not in trouble because I looked at a naked girl. I'm in trouble because that wasn't my naked girl to look at, right? I'm not a married person yet. I'm looking at somebody in a very inappropriate like angle, so to speak, right? What's my motive here? It's not love, it's lust. And it's like, this is bad.
I think that's important because you're teaching them that this is not like, I don't know, weed or drugs, which is just bad. It's a perversion of a good thing. And what you don't want to do is create in them a hesitancy or a hatred or bad feeling about the good thing. Because sex is great, but like you said, like outside the right context.
Is it great, Zane?
Okay.
You would know now.
It's good. God
it's good. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's about a 3. Okay, never listen to this.
So I think we can go forward.
We'll have that conversation behind the paywall.
I think we can go forward and maybe dive more into like the idea of porn and addressing that in your kids specifically more in another episode.
Yeah.
But let's say
this is just how do you respond to their confession?
Yeah. So let's go on from that a little bit because I feel like you did a good job. You addressed the sin of getting around the family rules, so to speak, and then. So let's say, you get past that. It's been a couple months, maybe a couple weeks, probably actually. How are you going to go about addressing that with that kid without making it the theme of discipleship? And where they think, oh, great, I'm going on discipleship. He's just going to ask me if I looked at porn this week. That's all he cares about.
That's right. Yeah. That's a great question.
That's right.
No, well,
That's what you do. No.
So I think you have to just gauge it with, and Zane, you can chime in here. You're gauging it with just okay, so what happened last week? How was this an established habit and pattern where you need to be asking very specific questions to that person? Because I've counseled men who've been heavily involved in pornography for years even. And it's like, when we meet, I'm asking specifically about, things that are set in place to prevent that from happening. I'm asking about, were you on your phone or was your phone taken away and locked up from, 11 o'clock at night onward? All the things that historically have been a trip for this particular man, right? And like helping him like ask those questions so he knows I'm going to ask. He knows there's going to be accountability. I've seen his phone. I've looked at where he spent different amounts of time, right? But one of the guys I was discipling a couple of years ago was awesome. We'd been together for about 8 months. And this was month like...
you were together with another dude?
Yeah, well, just...
That's weird.
Listen to the story. But he had a pattern of pornography for like 22 years. It was really entrenched. And we were about 6 months in at this point, and he said, hey, let me ask you a question. I'm like, sure. He's like, why don't we ever talk about pornography? And I'm like, oh, what do you want to know? He's like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, you've been in counseling for years before we started meeting, right? Yeah. So is there anything you don't understand about what pornography is doing to your brain or to your marriage? He's like, oh, no, I know what it's doing, exactly doing to my marriage. I'm like, okay, so the put off is very clear. You know exactly what to put off, why to put it off. I'm just telling you kind of what you're still doing it. But now what we're putting on, in this particular guy's case, it was discipleship with his kids. It was, spending quality time with his wife, and like on a level that she felt seen, heard, loved, cared for, right? And it was actually sexual in nature as part of that. Because, our wives they're sexual creatures too. But for him, it was like, we're not focusing on porn because just bring it up and talk about it. To me, it's like you're just keeping it alive. And yeah, for a little while, especially at the very beginning, I was asking questions on a weekly basis, but that faded out. And now it's like, what'd you do for devotions this week? Tell me again about this particular kid, because they were dealing with, some situations in their home, behavioral stuff with their kids. And it's like, that's what I was asking about and I was following up with. And it's like, he found his life. He moved on from pornography. And it's like, that's what you want,
Yeah. How does that look different with like a 16-year-old?
16-year-old. Well, I think...
Or 17.
Or 17. I think that reality is when you're 16 or 17 and you've been struggling with porn, like that's going to be like a daily desire / struggle. Because these kids, they're not married. They don't really have any outlet for their sexual desires to be met in a godly way. So it is going to probably be a daily struggle for them. And I think the way in those types of discipleship situations, you can keep from really making every meeting about pornography is kind of putting the impetus on them to talk about it with you.
I think it's called onus. You're putting the onus on them.
The onus.
Yeah, have you heard that word, Silas? Is that another one that you never heard of?
Let's look that one up, Gabe.
Yeah, technical sport, onus.
Next time we're just going to bring a dictionary to
No
the
idea how to spell
podcast.
it.
Because and I think just like starting to, not that you never check in on that.
Right.
I would say make it something that you're like, oh, I want you to be the one to like come to me about this, rather than I'm like always coming at you like with a spotlight, like where were you last night at midnight? What were you because I feel like that's just fostering more of this shame. Like, oh, I'm going to this meeting, so-and-so is going to think that I looked at porn last night, or I was struggling with these thoughts or something like that. And so I think just trying to encourage them to do that and have a desire to want to confess it. Because I pulled up this verse from 1 John 1. If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. And I think if you can teach your child, your son, or whoever you're discipling, that's really what confession is about. It's about being forgiven, and it's about being cleansed from all unrighteousness. It's not about like having this shame or this guilt spotlight put on you, but it's actually for your benefit. Like it's a good thing, and it really has nothing to do with you, other than as like the parent or the discipler, other than you're just being faithful to try to help them in their walk.
Yeah.
If you make it personal, like, oh, you've
Hurt mom and dad.
you've hurt me, you've sinned against me as your mentor or your parent,
Which is kind of true, but it feels that way.
It will hurt. Yeah. Because you care about that person, you love them, and you want the best for them. That's why it hurts. And maybe there's other consequences if it's your child in your family.
Right.
It's going to hurt because of that too. But you can't make it personal. Like the ultimate offense is against the Lord.
Now, just to break in really quick. Sorry.
I wanted to break in.
Mine's
really
way
quick.
more important.
Okay.
When you're talking to the kid, right? If they're still doing it. So Zane's saying, and I agree with Zane 100%. When discipling a kid who struggles with pornography, you're asking about it, you're hitting on it, you're looking at his screen time, whatever, right? And then you're moving on. Mm-hmm. But if he's still keeping it alive, now you have to like readdress it in the sense of, okay, we need different measures in place. And at times, removal from the home, like at a program, it is necessary for things like pornography, like violence, like drugs, to where if they actually need a reset, find a way to get it for them, because it's sometimes you just got to be out of that environment for a while with access to break a habit. Older men can't hardly do this because they're supporting their families. They got bills to pay. Even your stupid phone, it's like getting rid of your phone is really tough, and even shutting it down for those types of things to look at is tough, because it also shuts off your maps. It shuts off a lot of other things that you kind of need. So we'll have different episodes about this kind of stuff. But all that to say, we're not minimizing and saying, once you talked about it, don't bring it up too much. It's like, well, you bring it up as much or as little as how is he doing? How is he responding?
Well, to qualify what I said, that's a good point. It's if that person is confessing, right? If they are showing that
walking within the boundaries,
then that's when you can make that transition.
I just feel not heard.
Oh, okay, that's good. Anyway, so Zane.
Well, I was just gonna say, so there's a kid I disciple, and he does struggle with this. And there's two things I wanted to say about this particular situation. Is one, realize that if you're a parent to a teenager, and you can kind of speak to this, we cannot. The world of porn in which you grew up in and the world they're growing up in are night and day different, I would say. Yes, it's always been available. Yes, there's nothing new under the sun. But the way in which it's being thrown at kids and just widely available, like you don't have to be creative to get any more. You don't really even have to hardly be sneaky. Like there's a million different ways you can get a hold of it. So realize that like your kids probably are just going to get a hold of it. Just assume the worst. I think it's over 80% of boys over the age of 8 have had interaction with porn on some level. And your kids probably aren't outside of that statistic, sadly. Right. So your kids are going to have way more access to it than you ever did. So be aware of that. Both with like how you're giving them grace and an understanding that you're like, well, I didn't see it till I was 60. I don't know why he's looking at it when he's 11. And also with the fact that it's going to be way easier for them to get to it. But with that being said, and with like what you said about your kid, man, I kind of forgot my train of thought here, so I'm kind of having to refocus. Sorry. I know, real bad.
What did I say about my kid?
I have this kid who I talked to who's struggled with it a little bit. And when we do like a discipleship, like you said, it's sort of, which he has a really good pattern of when he gets into it and when he looks at porn. He always calls me like that day. Like we always say, like, never wait over a day, like always call within that day. And he does it very consistently. And he's built that trust over time to where now when we meet on like a Thursday, I'm like, hey, are you struggling at all with like porn this week? He's like, no, man, it's been a great week. And that's the end of that conversation. It's not like, I'm like, well, really, have you been? Like, are you sure you haven't even a little bit? It's like, no, you just like, you let it be, like you said, especially if they show a pattern, not of like getting to it and then not saying anything, but of like constant confession and really wanting that is a great thing. And then my second point here is that with this specific thing, but also with things like being tempted, I don't know if you had kids, like temptations to vape or stuff like that. We never really struggled with that, especially being homeschooled. I don't know how much of a problem. It's a big problem at Future Bend, so it's probably a problem a lot of places.
Droopy struggles.
Does he really? No. Okay, good. Anyway, moving on from that. But one thing, like I tell him all the time,
that's the
is
reaction
like,
you shouldn't have.
That's true. I'm really bad at discipleship. That was funny. I just did that for the example.
You love Droopy. We appreciate that.
I do love Droopy. But one thing I told him with this porn thing is, dude, like the moment you start to struggle, and this is where I feel like you can do this with your kid, is like, just call me. And them calling you and saying like, okay, I'm home alone. I'm being tempted. Sometimes just the act of calling is enough to get them like out of that mode. And sometimes you're like, hey, okay, like jump in the car or just stay on the phone with me for a little bit until someone's home and you're not alone anymore. Or what can you do right now? Like what kind of work projects do you have? And like, I think you can do that with your kids too, is like, and sometimes some kids are and some kids probably aren't, is the reality.
Yeah. The hard part is, and I want to hear what Zane has to say if it's related to this, but like it's a difference between discipling somebody else who's not your kid and you don't have any authority to give consequences. You don't even want that authority. Versus, okay, if your kid's struggling,
I spank him
and they tell you, oh, good. If your kid's telling you, it's like you have to take action, especially again if they're getting around barriers and you're not looking like, oh, I want to consequence this kid. You're thinking, I want to protect my kid, and this is what protection looks like. well, you didn't listen, so now you're going to lose, X, Y, and Z, or we're going to set this up because we don't want you to have a lifestyle pattern of pornography. So it's a little tougher. If it's a kid that you're just discipling that's like in your church or something, that's fantastic. It's amazing you're doing it. But you also have to be ready, and it doesn't sound like it with this kid, to say, you're not listening, you're confessing, but it doesn't mean anything because you're not changing, right? And they just, all the roadblocks you put up, they just dance around, and they're in a nice way, they don't really want help.
Yeah.
So it's like and that's a whole different conversation of
We should have that conversation.
when not to waste your time anymore.
Yeah.
I hate to say that, but
No, that's a good conversation.
What were you going to say, Zane?
Well, I was just going to say, I think it's important if we're talking about teaching kids to confess and ask for forgiveness. You have to start by making sure they understand like what is sinful, like what are they doing that's wrong, and not just rely on their conviction or that they've somehow through church or something learned what is sinful. Because I was thinking about, we've been talking a lot about pornography, but like you mentioned vaping or something even more severe like drugs, because there's a lot of kids that come into our program that struggle with alcohol or marijuana use or even harder drugs. And I would say that the sins that they struggled with leading up to that were ones that parents probably don't talk to their kids a lot about, which is anxiety. And that's like a thing that, and I think there's probably a lot of subtle sins like
They're
that.
precursors.
They're precursors.
Yeah, they lead to that.
And if you can educate your kids that these are
a word.
actually sinful behaviors in and of themselves, and teach them how to start confessing those things and addressing them early on, you can maybe avoid more severe behaviors and the more severe consequences that come with those down the road. But that just takes like you being aware of the types of things that your kid's dealing with and educating them on it. Because I think our culture, I think pornography is starting to become more of like okay, we all know this is bad for you. Even like socially, people will say like it's bad, even if they won't say it's evil.
Only took us 50 years.
Yeah. But there's a lot of things like anxiety or those types of things that the Bible calls sin, but our society wouldn't say that. And so that your child may not know that those particular things are sinful.
Well, and they lead the kid to like self-medicate through pornography, video games, drugs, whatever, right? It's all just good, makes me feel good and takes me away from whatever it is that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Which is pretty typical for the kids we deal with.
I don't know what I was going to say.
Okay, good.
I said I was going to look.
One other warning real quick. So when you mentioned like pornography is not the same as it was, and we need to have this talk, probably a different podcast as well. A lot of more podcasts coming up. So like and subscribe and pay attention.
In the comments.
But in reality, so the porn that your kids could see, the scariest thing is to me, it's like random things will come up that aren't like, not that this is okay, but like, it's not like a pinup girl just showing like, what they call soft porn, and it's all bad. I don't, none of it's okay, but it's like, it's not the same. They'll be showing what look like kids that are, models that are women who just aren't very developed because they're selling them as basically minors on the internet. Old people, just weird, like I would call it almost
perverse
fetish type stuff. Yeah. And it's like, if your kid's looking at that stuff, man, it's going to, because you see in the news once in a while, you'll hear a weird rape case, or you hear just something that's just like, how bizarre is that? Well, that kid or that person involved in that crime didn't just go from 0 to 60. Something brought them there. And typically, from what I know, at least of my work at Future Men, it's pornography. And it's the little side trail on that road of pornography that got them specifically there. So, like, I'll tell you a weird one. So, one of the boys I was discipling.
Just keep it, appropriate.
Wait, I always do. One of the boys I was discipling had basically touched his sisters. And when we started digging deep into where did this begin, about midway through the beginnings of his temptations, he had found a website called Stepsister Porn or Stepsister Scenarios or whatever. And it was pornography that was like basically setting up scenarios where you'd watch it like a TV show of basically touching your sisters, your stepsisters within your own house. And And that's exactly what he did. To me, it's like those people who make those things, they're the ones who should be in jail. It's like, this is
Amen.
this is evil. And it ruined that kid's, didn't ruin his life, but it definitely destroyed a chapter of their family's life. Just super sad and unnecessary. Anyway, so just be aware of what they're actually looking at.
Yeah, there's a lot out there. And I think maybe in the future we can do more of an in-depth episode on addressing it and then preventing it, hopefully.
Right, how to find what they're looking at, how to see what they're seeing, and how to like talk about it.
And then get into, talking through specifically. But for next week, I think we can talk a little bit more about what you said, Zane, which is sort of like the precursors, which hopefully if you're starting discipleship young, the whole point is preventing your kids getting to these perverse and like places. But the reality is, if you truly want to prevent that, you do need to know how to address when your kid comes to you and says like, oh yeah, I have anxiety now because so-and-so told me at school that I have anxiety because I got nervous about something. And so I think next week we can kind of talk about those sort of things and how to address that with your kids in a way that is Christ-like and really addresses it from a Christian worldview rather than everyone has anxiety and everyone's depressed and medications are the best thing you can do.
Or just jump on it strong and think it's like, oh, my kid's, and he's getting therapy. And it's like, he heard the word at school.
Yeah.
Relax. Even the crazy stuff, like the trans stuff or the furry stuff or any of that weird stuff. It's like some of these kids don't have a clue what they're saying. So just,
Finn
go
would,
slow.
Finn would probably be,
Finn would be a
furry
cat
at
lady.
this point
Yeah.
if she went to public school.
She would, but she's not. She's a beautiful little girl.
She's gorgeous.
It's like she happens to love cats.
Okay, so do like and subscribe and leave a comment about any questions you have. You can email us up.
Hit the hype button. You like that?
You're interrupting my outro.
Gabe wants us to look at this camera.
Oh,
I look over there.
There you go. We're learning.
we're not very good at this. But anyway, like and subscribe. Do leave a comment asking any questions you have. You can also email any questions anonymously. We won't read your name unless you ask me to, in which case I probably still won't.
Or if your name's like Winthrop, we'll read it if it's that. Something cool.
Yeah, make sure it's a cool name.
Anyway, email parenting you're struggling. No, just kidding. That's an old name. Email futurefamilies@gmail.com. And we'll answer any questions.
See you later.
Bye.
Not like that. That's so weird. All right. See ya.